to just say a sincere thank you to our panel appearing today as part of our workplace and cultural development webinar series. Thank you to Dyson for agreeing to be the moderator today. I also wanted to say a very sincere thank you to OMAFRA as our partner in this project that we're undertaking related to labor, which is the biggest issue that the sector is facing. It's really a crisis issue for us, and this is a big part of raising awareness and helping understand what some of the issues are. So we have an expert panel today. Thanks very much to our panelists for taking the time. Thank you to OMAFRA. Thank you as well to our colleagues at Labor and Training if they happen to be joining us today. But we've really had strong support from the province, and we greatly appreciate it on this. And thank you so much, particularly in the summertime, for taking the time, everybody, to join us today and check out what we have to say. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you, Chris. First and foremost, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining this panel session on building value proposition that grows your workforce. My name is Dyson Wells. I'm the project manager at Food and Beverage Ontario, and I'm also pleased to be your moderator for this afternoon's event on what is arguably the most pressing issue facing the food and beverage manufacturing industry today, which, of course, many of you know is employee attraction and retention. As you also know, Ontario's food and beverage processing industry is enduring an intensifying labor crisis. In just 5 years, it's expected that the industry will experience up to 25,000 job vacancies due to the retirement age of the workforce, as well as growing challenges in attraction and retention of both skilled and frontline job seekers. Modernized employer recruitment and retention strategies have been identified as critical to attracting and retaining an essential workforce now and in the future. So today, you'll hear from recruitment experts on how businesses are crafting effective employee value propositions, as well as how your business can build, refine, and uphold its own value proposition. With this, you'll be able to better foster authentic employer-employee relationships, as well as attract job seekers and promote innovation. Before I introduce our panelists, I would like to first recognize as well that FBO's Workplace and Cultural Development webinar series, including today's session, is funded by the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. This afternoon, we are joined by 3 exceptional recruiters in the food and beverage processing space. First, we have Nicole Gallus, who is a talent solution manager focused on the food and beverage processing industry. After 10 years of third-party recruiting in the sector, she noticed a gap in support for students and graduates looking to start their careers. She started Food Grads in 2016 and is key partner of Food and Beverage Ontario, Food and Beverage Ontario's Taste Your Future and Careers Now program, Nicole also sold Food Grads in 2021 to the talent solution group who owns careersinfood.com, eggcareers.com, and DeLacy North America. She continues to grow Food Grads, supporting students and graduates while building relationships with colleges and universities. She has also gone back to her roots, partnering with organizations as a third-party recruiter to support their hiring needs. Next, we have Lucas Colantino, who is a recruitment manager with Fuel Recruiting. He has a sharp mind for business, completing his business administration course from Mohawk College, which, by the way, is also a school that I attended as well, so fellow alumni. After 10 years in the hospitality industry, where he developed his customer service and talent acquisition skills, Lucas made the natural transition into recruitment. He now has 5 years experience and brings professionalism, drive, and focus to his role. From the same organization, we also have Leslie Colantino-Biel, who is also a recruitment manager. She is an accomplished business owner with over 25 years of experience in business operations and talent acquisition. She is also has experience building companies from the grassroots, combined with focus and dedication that it takes to successfully attract top talent. Now, throughout this session, you will be able to submit comments and questions into the chat box and the Q&A box, both located at the bottom of your screen. please be sure to submit questions through the Q&A box rather than the comment box so that they may be addressed during this session. Okay, and everyone's still with me?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, well, why don't we start off with the fundamentals, because I'm recognizing that approximately 90% of Ontario's food and beverage processors are small processors. They may be wearing multiple hats. An owner may not be just the owner. They may also be the financial department, and they may also be the HR department. So for those who may not be particularly familiar, what exactly is an employee value proposition and why do they matter? Who
So
wants to know first?
I can open up if you like. So essentially, employee value proposition is what the company is offering to drive their employees to walk in the door, and what are they offering in exchange for their abilities and skills. So it really comes down to, I would say, company culture is very important. So basically, employee value proposition is your drive to get employees into the door, to sum it up.
That seems like that's a fairly critical aspect, especially recognizing that employee attraction and retention is the biggest issue right now. It's also the biggest issue pre-existing what we then faced over the 2 years with COVID. I'd open it up as well to Nicole and Leslie also to give their thoughts on what an EVP means to an organization.
Yeah, I mean, I think compensation is a given. That's got to be right. It's got to be, within the market sphere. You've got to make sure that you're competitive first and foremost. And I would say definitely work-life balance, whatever that really means anymore. I guess because of COVID, people are working from home more and more. But that seems to be very important. Stability, I think, speaking from the angle of the food industry, it's definitely a stable industry. So I think employers can use that to entice people into their organizations. And culture, the respect people receive, I think that's really important. What they do over and above their business, in terms of giving back, I think that's something that is more and more of interest. Certainly I wear my student and grad hat when I'm with food grads, and that's definitely something they look for when they're looking to join a company. They want to be proud of the company that they work for.
And you would I think one of the things that I'd be interested in knowing is just how important this ends up being. I know that food and beverage processing owners, as well as their head office staff, a lot of the time, it's understandable if they have the question of how important, because there's a lot of things that are quite important. So how important is EVP to achieving their employee hiring goals?
I can go ahead, or Leslie, did you?
Go right ahead. I'm trying to get my video on here, so if you want to do that, I'll just try this for a second here and I'll jump right on.
I would say with competition, it's the most important thing. If you can't drive people, certainly food and beverage isn't number one on the minds of some graduates. It's not a conversation at the school level, or at least it's not the most desirable, and we all eat, and it's kind of surprising I don't know why it's not more of a conversation when people are choosing the career paths. But I found that even when I was recruiting, previously, then I started food grads, and then I'm recruiting again. I would interview people, and it's often, I zigged and I zagged, and I ended up in food. And I just thought that was really curious. Why wasn't it something that people did from the onset, when there are so many benefits to working in the food and beverage industry? So I don't know why that is. And I think now is the time for employers united to come forward as an industry and really present themselves as a really a desirable place to work, pointing out, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. There's that in every industry, but I feel like with the food industry, there's too much emphasis on what might not be as desirable. You know, the reality is you are working in cold environments, potentially with raw chicken on occasion, you know, depending on the environment, but there are a ton of pluses as well. So, you know, as you mentioned, there are smaller organizations. So you have that close-knit family culture, because there are so many, you know, small to medium-sized operators in the area. There's, you know, I think a lot of companies are looking to professionally develop people, and if they're not, that's definitely something they should be focused on. The industry is recession-proof, essentially. You know, we saw with COVID, the canned goods, the frozen goods, they were flying off the shelf. The food industry did not suffer per se in terms of layoffs and that sort of thing. So I think that's something that needs to be celebrated. You know, it's a solid, stable place. If you're going to school and you're looking to where should I spend my dollars, or what sort of education, you know, maybe take a look and see what you can do in the food and beverage industry. And of course, bonuses, rewards, that kind of thing. If it's within the capability, I think that's something that employers should offer as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's interesting how one of the challenges we have with putting this webinar series together, and maybe challenge isn't the right word, it's not challenge, it's actually a good thing, is how interconnected all of this seems to be. Your conversations on your points on how we talk about these positions is something that was front row center for our previous webinar on communication, and was one of the key elements that our advisor council, who helps us put these topics together, wanted to highlight. And it was to stop, please, starting off with the negative. Don't beat yourself up in your own job postings, but to highlight the values and the benefits of working at your organization, and to remember that should be front row center. And by doing that, you're also advancing the culture of your workplace, which also, the point of these series is, ties into better performance with employee attraction and retention. I'd also just want to open it up to Leslie. I know you're fighting tooth and nail for that camera, but no worries if it doesn't follow through. It's technology, and we all know how that goes.
You know what I look like? You're okay. Yeah,
I just wanted to open it up to see if you wanted to add your thoughts on that.
Sure. Yeah, it amazes me that the food and beverage industry is so incredibly large, and we can't survive without it. But it doesn't pull the people that it needs to pull. And I understand the entry level people, that's always a hard sell in the first place, but we have to promote it somehow, through schooling, through accessing young people to move into the business. And then you've got all your more senior people, and we really have to make them feel like this is somewhere they want to work. I mean, sadly, right now it is a candidate industry. And for the first time in quite some time, unless you're looking at real high level jobs, the company is proving itself to the candidate instead of the candidate proving itself to the company. And I think that's a big switch these days. And people are a little bit blown away by the whole aspect of that, because they just don't know how to handle it. I mean, before, you know, people will be begging for jobs, and now companies are begging for employers or employees. So you have to do that company culture. You have to get yourself out there on social media, whether you like it or not, because that plays to the new generation. And Lucas has some points on, I mean, they're kind of industry, like our little industry secrets, but how you can kind of make that happen easier for the company from your website. Luke, you want to explain a little bit about that?
Sure. It's basically setting yourself up to get the people that you want to work for your company going down the right funnel. So with these posts on Facebook, Instagram, all social media, You know, you want to say you put up a picture or even a text. You want to have a link directly going to apply now or company culture page on your website. You never want to have them going right to your homepage. You know, it would be more beneficial to have them directly going to, say, a page on your website where you have an employee on video talking about how good it is to work there, what jobs are available at your business right now for them to hire, for them to apply to. So that's just one way of kind of eliminating a lot of drop off percentage there. So it's good to one of my suggestions, I would say.
That's an interesting point. And while we're still in the understanding EVP section, and before we move on to our 2 follow-up sections, which we have in store, and I'll let the audience in on that one, which we will be talking after, is going to be how to create your own EVP, as well as reassessing and updating your company's existing EVP, and some conversations about the current environment we're in when doing so. Those are coming up, but while we're still in the understanding section, I am not a business analyst. I'm not a business professional. I just talk to a lot of people in business, which is nice. But one of the things that struck me, just being in communications, was how similar this seems as a process from a 50,000 mile bird's eye view, to something like a customer journey, when you're attracting these employees. And you know, when we have a customer journey, for example, or marketing funnel, you have acronyms like AIDA, which is attention, interest, desire, and action. Is there something similar that can assist owners or HR specialists when they're approaching EVP? It's okay if the answer is no. I have sprung this one on you.
I think it might be a no.
Might be a no. Okay. Just wanted to ask it, see if there was the possibility, but it sounds like it's complicated as it sounds. So good to know. So why don't we use that as a springboard then into actually how you do approach creating your own EVP. So I'll begin with saying that, you know, let's say I am again a small business and I don't have an EVP yet. We're starting from ground one. We're ground floor on this one. What are the steps that I need to take to create my own?
Who would like to go?
Nicole, why don't you field this one to kick us off? Sure.
I think the most important thing is to bring your team together. Maybe it is a small team, maybe it's one person, you know, like it can be small, but really understand your purpose, your vision. I think as long as everybody existing is on the same page, then you can project that culture, those values. But you have to know that to start with. Everyone has to be on the same page. And, you know, I think that's a really important, almost like an exercise, because if you start to see some of your other leadership members are not on the same page, and that's a question of, you know, how are we portraying ourselves if our own people aren't, you know, walking the walk? Like, what are our values, and does everybody believe in them? And should we be tweaking that, you know, for the long term? And in terms of attracting the next generation, have we thought of everything type thing? That's what I would do first. And then within our capabilities, what can we offer on, you know, in terms of benefits? Again, I kind of leave compensation aside because I think that's a given. If you're not paying, you can have all the most wonderful things in the world in terms of values and the rest of it. But I could be wrong, but my thought is if you aren't paying the market value for that particular position, I don't know if someone will join when there are other companies that will pay them what they're worth. You know, and you know, at the end of the day, if you're a new grad, you've got student bills to pay, and if you're more senior in your career, you have mortgages to pay. Like, money always talks. And so I would definitely make sure you are aware what, compensation benchmark reviews, you should be looking at that to see if you are offering, because if you're suddenly losing people, maybe it's that, maybe another company. And to Leslie's point, it has gone a bit bonkers right now with companies having to offer more than they possibly would have done, prior to COVID. But I think they need to check and make sure they are in the right, in the right ballpark at least. And I actually did the last thing I'll say, I did a little survey. I thought about it. I was on the couch and I added it to food grads. So that audience is predominantly students and grads, and I think employers as well. And I did what would make you join a company? Like, what is important to you? And I added signing bonus, benefits like paid at 100%, vacation or additional vacation, or a career advancement plan. And I have to say, I was surprised that 37% said, and I had about 250 responses. It may be more now, but in overnight, like right now, 250 responses. And 37% said career advancement plan. That was the largest piece, which I thought was really interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that. 31 said additional vacation. Vacation is really important to them. Then benefits, then signing bonus.
Well,
so yeah.
Nicole, I gotta thank you, because that is a perfect teaser for our upcoming webinar, which will be developing career pathways. And that will focus on training and on-site training as well. But that's an interesting point that you brought up that I've heard a few times, and it is to not underestimate your employees or job seekers and their desire to advance, their desire to contribute. And yes, I think a lot of us do recognize that there's the monetary value, but I think from what I've seen, it is quite common to underestimate from your frontline essential working force, the ones that uphold your core business, that those people also have plans, and they appreciate an employer who supports them in their efforts to advance on those plans. Mm-hmm. So to draw it back again, the question that I was posing is what are the first steps that I do to create an EVP? So Nicole, thank you for those comments. I think those are actually quite actionable. And Leslie, what is your thoughts on those first steps? Feel free to, if Nicole's mentioned it, feel free to mention them again. There's no issue with that. But what do you think the first steps for developing an EVP would be?
I would definitely try to, if you're a new company going in, you have to sit back and think, what do I want to project? Like, what is my company's culture? How do I want people to feel? How do I feel about running this company? What's it going to take for my employees to feel like I respect them and they're part of this process going forward with me? I think there's a lot of people out there that I've talked to, Lucas has talked to, that yes, the money's going to come because these people have to pay a certain amount to get these people on board. Our candidates are looking for, like Nicole said, the longevity. They don't want this whole new, happy medium of life and work. They don't want to be jumping around job to job. They want to be able to get into this job, know that they can advance forward in it, and stay with it for the long run. To get that idea in their head, that all comes from the company owners, the people that are designing these companies, that have the passion, that they need to spread it to their employees. And as recruiters, and I'm sure Nicole and Lucas agree, that we sometimes have to do that for them because they haven't set it up that way. We believe in their company, but they have so much other stuff going on. This really, at this point in time in the world, they've got to put some time and effort into proving themselves and putting themselves out there for people that want to have long careers within the industry. People don't want to be jumping back and forth. Right now, they just want longevity. They want family time. So they want the extra vacation time, and it totally makes sense to me that 37% would say advancement within the company they're in. You know, years ago, it was all climbing the ladder, company to company, you know, make sure you stay at one place for 2 years and then you can bounce up and move a step on the ladder up to another company. People, I think, are just kind of like, they've got the whole, you know, family vision in mind, and they're tired and they want to go into a company. They want to be respected. They want to do their job, and they want to know that there's a good possibility I could retire from here. That's up to
Correct.
the company owner to try to get that, relay that across to them.
That's an excellent point. And you know, it may be tied into this, but one of the questions I'd like to ask Lucas for our next question would be what makes an EVP successful specifically. You know, I think that if someone's creating an EVP and they're listening to all this great advice on how to do it, I think the back of their head, they're also going to be wondering, am I going towards my goals here? And I think that the question of, is this effective EVP, is going to be a prominent one. So Lucas, I wanted to ask you your thoughts on what makes an EVP successful rather than ineffective. What is the difference?
I would say building trust with a potential employee about your company and the direction that you're heading. A lot of the time you want to actually show employees who your top clients are with our clients page on your website. So just putting that out there, if you have a couple of big clients, they're going to see longevity in your company, right? They're going to know that you have locked up contracts. I'm just talking about for like the independent business owners or the people that are like 1 to 3 employees that are trying to make that next scaling move. This is what needs to happen. They have to really gain trust on people to make, say somebody's coming from an established business over to this small company. Well, yeah, of course, compensation is going to be the deciding factor, but trust, and you know, they really have to like the people that they're working with. So I think that's very important.
Okay, open to the floor on this one.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Moving people from an established company into a smaller new company, there has to be that passion there. And that's probably why they're going to take the same amount of money to go to a smaller company, because this big company has lost their passion. And a lot of new companies starting out have that passion. They're not jaded with, 25, 30 years of being in business. The newer companies do have that as a benefit because they have the passion. They've opened this company for a reason, and you have to relay that to your candidates.
I would 100% say the trust piece. You can't, that was the old saying, so many companies had the values or the culture written behind the reception desk.
Right.
But you got to walk the walk. Like if people, and I think certainly with social media, if you aren't, you get exposed really easily. And then the trust is gone. So
let's actually pivot to that. So this has come up a few times now. So communication seems to be key, but I know social media is not everyone's forte. So social media is like Mars to some people, and understandably so. It is complicated sometimes, and it is mind-boggling in others. What role is social media and communications playing in EVP now? Because I think a lot of people, they think, I put it on Indeed and that's it. Or, they may even be doing things very old school, and they're not using their website or anything. They're doing it completely different, I don't want to say off the grid, because it's not off the grid, but they're not embracing digital, for example. What is the communication style that needs to be addressed now?
I would hire somebody that can communicate digitally. If I was that person, I would hire somebody to build a website tomorrow morning, and I would hire probably a co-op student out of school that you could kind of, get doing all your social media posts, maybe some website updates, then you can transition them into, maybe an employee, like an administrative role or something.
Nicole, you have specifically experience with grads and with current students as well.
Mhm.
What are the options with getting students to participate in your organization?
I cannot speak highly enough of the co-op students that I've had been blessed to work with. They bring fresh ideas. Their ability on the digital platforms, they know them all, and their abilities just is second nature. They've grown up with this technology, and that you can hire a co-op student and essentially for free you can get subsidies, so you can hire this talent and it won't even cost the business any money. And I think it's such an untapped resource. It gives the co-op student work experience, which they need, hands-on work experience, as well as an insight into the industry. But the return on the investment, even though there isn't really an investment, because you can, as long as you're willing to do a little bit of paperwork, you can essentially hire a co-op student for free. So the ROI is huge, and they can get you up and running, and all on every platform. And going back to both Lucas and Leslie's comments about social with video, if you can throw up 1 million job postings, but if you can get someone to record themselves that actually works in the organization and speaks highly, talk about their job, talk about why they love their job, that's just going to be so much more valuable than a posting on the website.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I think everyone would be quick to agree that this is an environment that they are forged in. They grew up with this, and I've seen it as well, especially when we're talking about authentic relationship building through communications. And you can have someone who adapts to the platform and like tries to take it on, and they may be successful, they may not. But when it comes to having someone who is already a native user to those platforms coming on, there is this innate, authentic nature in the communications. They're using it as it was designed to be used. But yeah, Leslie, what are your thoughts on communications to bolster your EVP?
Yeah, absolutely. The social media has to happen, even when, like Nicole was saying, they'll throw up an ad on Indeed and hope for the best. We have found within the last year that just does not work. First thing, if someone by chance happens to go on Indeed, most of these people are already working, but if they happen to go on Indeed and check out the posting, first thing they're going to do is go onto that website. And if it's giving the company culture on the front page and it's a whole bunch of words, they're probably just going to pass it on by. If you can get them to directly access a video of your employees telling them how much they like to work at the company and what it's about, you hook, line, and sinker, you've got them in already. I mean, it's all about video. You see social media. People aren't reading a lot anymore, sadly to say. So if you put all your facts in an employee's hands and let them tell the candidates how great it is to work there, it's going to make a world of difference. And I know it's a lot of work for companies to take this on top of everything else. But I think this is just the way it's going to have to be working going forward with this new generation of social media.
Even for the independent business owners, the people that they're doing it by themselves right now. My suggestion would be for them to get on the video, for them to address their vision of the company, what they want to do, right? What their goals are in growing, everything like that, company culture. So really put yourself out there. Video tells a million words, right? So
Lucas, to give you a loaded question, because as a comms person, I know the answer. So, but if someone were to say, okay, I'm going to do video, how hard is it to do? What do they need?
Well, these days you can do it pretty well, like on your cell phone. So like, I wouldn't say for an independent business owner to go and spend, say, $5,000 for a video company to do a shoot and then $5,000 to edit it, you know, it's probably not in their budget, but you could probably get your iPhone that has amazing camera, get a tripod, get some lights, and you know, maybe a couple of YouTube videos, and you could probably make it happen, right? So
Absolutely. I've seen it a lot, actually, where they do that. And if you I know a lot of municipalities, they have their business associations that help small businesses specifically. And I assure you, all of them tell you that the best camera you have is the one that's on you, and it is probably just in your pocket. So you're all set. So perfect for that. Thank you. And I appreciate your comments on how actionable it is for the 90% of food and beverage processors, which are small businesses. So this is stuff that's very much achievable and does not need to be overcomplicated, and it does not need to be cost prohibitive. You can do these with relative ease with just a little bit of planning, which is what we're here for today. And just as a quick note, I'll make a comment about it later as well, but this will be recorded. So if you do want a copy of this, you will receive one, and feel free to share it within your organization if you think that this is stuff that can support someone in your company to get going.
I have one quick note just before we move on to the next topic, just a thought that I had. I almost think going out and spending all the money and the big production is unauthentic, and I think that's, people see through that as well. Like, storytelling is key. Someone with their phone saying, I love my company, you know, and they truly do, versus someone in front with a script saying, this is an amazing place to work. Like, people are going to see through that. You know, I've made my employee, you know, potentially say that they love working here. That's obvious. Whereas I think if it's a little bit less planned and more informal with the cell phone, or, you know, I think that actually goes further.
Yeah, it's funny. That's one of the comments that I hear a lot is if you know you have a problem if your employees stop asking about your product and stop caring about it. And I'll use an example, and I'm lifting it from someone who is part of our advisory council, but I think they mentioned that one of the food and beverage processors that was referenced was producing some sort of nuts, and they used to allow you, when you walk out the door, to walk out with a big bag full. And they said they knew there was a problem when that stopped. And that's a big problem. And it's small things like that that are kind of your clues. We need to reassess. We need to have a look at what is going on here, that they are so, I guess, disinterested, or that's probably not the word, disenchanted perhaps, that they are not even engaging with the products that they're creating. They need that. There should be, in a perfect world, that sense of pride where you make these products and you love these products, and you know, that they take it home to their family and say, like, you know, free food for whatever, and you know, I made it, you know. So that's definitely just one example. So it's a great point. And let me just check my notes here. Kind of similar to that, when you do recognize, you know, there's these issues, we and again, I've mentioned that we are also facing a labor crisis that was then compounded with COVID, and I couldn't list the number of challenges that has created, burnout and everything like that. But excuse me, my question is, what creative ways have companies adapted to pitching new job seekers throughout the past 2 years that may have been different previously? You know, is it a matter of best practices right now, or are there any creative aspects to pitching now rather than previously?
Well, the obvious one would be for the roles that can work from home sometimes, that we're doing the hybrid role, but we all know that, you know, with these industries, all roles can't work from home anytime they want. So I mean, for the administrative, for the upper roles, definitely a hybrid opportunity would be a great pull.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's a
for
great
sure.
point. Yeah.
I've seen that as a deal breaker. People are not interested in my experience, with search projects I've worked on. If a company says, well, we're now back in the office, but we want you back in at your desk, because then I know you're working, that's turning a lot of people off, because throughout COVID, everybody became pretty adept at working remotely. And for some people, they enjoy that freedom, and maybe it's their family. They can go pick their kid up from school now. They can make life work for them whilst not skipping a beat from a productivity perspective. And I think with the way that we work now with our cell phones on our hip all the time, there is give and take. It used to be that when you were in the office, you were just working. But now I don't know anybody that does that. Like, who doesn't check their cell into the evening? Like, it's just second nature now. So I think that's allowing the work life, if you want to call it the work life balance, and just kind of trust again. Like, if you need your employees to be physically there so that you can keep an eye on them, and they don't have to be based on the role they're in, that's a trust issue, and that doesn't make an employee feel very good. So yeah, that's my 2 pennies worth there.
Yeah, no, that bringing the work-life balance into the forefront, I think, is definitely a good point, especially now.
Yeah, keeps people healthier if they can pop on to the gym, or you want a healthy workforce. If they're able, when they were working in the office, they didn't have time to go to the gym, for example, or run or walk the dog. Now they can do that at lunchtime, and their health is better, so they're not taking as many sick days. I mean, I think there's a bigger picture to look at, the benefits of that. Again, we talked about culture, and I think you might lose a little bit of that, but I think there's a balance.
Mm-hmm. It's hard though, I think, in the food processing industry, because 90% of those jobs, the people have to be on the line.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be in the factory. So how do we sell to them? How do we get them on board? We can't offer this hybrid position. They have to be in there at all times. And I think that is company culture, longevity of their job, advancement, competitive wages, and a strong human resource team. So the people that are working there are happy, nice to each other. I mean, there's so many candidates that we come across that will leave a position because there was, prejudice on the floor, or many different things. And that's going to happen in a huge sector like food and beverage processing. But we have to be a little bit more creative on how to get those guys that have to be in the plant 40 hours a week to move over.
That's an excellent point, and I'm happy to hear that come up in this webinar. And it will be continuing moving forward on our follow-up sessions. The importance of diversity in the workplace and the consequences, whether they're benefits or not, on whether you've been taking care of this and actually have a plan for it. Diversity in the workforce can have effect on your onboarding, it can have effect on your training, and it can have an effect on your attraction and retention. We will have some people talking about that coming up soon with the University of Guelph. So I'm very glad to hear that come up now. So it also brings us to a bit of an opportunity here to, as we've mentioned, talk about how a lot of the people in the industry, they will be having to work on site. Mm-hmm. They're positions that cannot be remote unless we find out that we can control robots in some way, which will be cool to see, but not yet. So my question is, especially now, especially when especially when you have to wear your masks, you've got to follow all these protocols with COVID. How do you pitch that to a job seeker? How do you make that proposition that yes, it's going to be a difficult work environment. Yes, there will be distance set in place, or you may have to wear a mask. You know, and especially one of the ones that I hear a lot, you know, we're talking about safety. You know, is it safe in this environment that we have? How do you address that in your EVP? It's a hard question. I'm sorry, but that it is one I think that is top of mind. So I would like to pose it to this panel.
Absolutely. I think you have to be very forefront in your thinking and your planning when it comes to safety, and you've got to put that right out there for the people. I mean, that's in this whole video thing that we were talking about. That's, you know, a great add-on, is telling people how safe it is to work there, and all the measures you have taken to get yourself to that point to keep your staff happy and safe and healthy when they're in the workplace.
Cleanliness too is very important within this industry. Like
Comes up.
people and tools. I'm going to touch with that. So if you're dealing with guys that are fixing your conveyor belts, for example, like guys want to have new tools, right? To use. So this is very important. Gets people to leave your company, you know, to go to a cleaner environment, to go to a safer environment, to go to somewhere where they have functioning tools for you to use, you know. So these are all very good points to draw people in or push them out of your business.
Okay, that definitely isn't something I would have initially thought, but that makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the pride piece as well, you know, you're feeding people, and you know, whilst it's not always the most desirable, you know, like I said, hot, cold, smells, like the food industry is what it is, but there's somebody for every position, I think. And I think as long as they feel that they are valued and their work is purposeful and meaningful, then, you know, you can get around that a little bit. That perhaps you mentioned onboarding, and I think that's really underutilized, a really practical, effective onboarding program, so that people do feel enthusiastic when they join and take pride in why they need to keep the plant clean. You know, there are foodborne diseases and, you know, things that can go wrong, you know, and you know, at the end of the day, I think if you make sure people feel proud, they understand the culture, they feel engaged, and that obviously helps with retention as well. You know, there's loyalty there as well. So yeah, all of the above.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. While we're discussing assessing our employee value propositions, you know, what do you have any advice for someone who is trying to keep tabs on it? Like, let's say we've drafted an EVP, you know, our pitch to our employees a few years back. What are the steps they do for reassessing it? Maybe similar to creating it, but it's always worth asking.
I would just say checking in with your employees. I mean, it's the easiest thing. It can be an anonymous survey. You know, how do you think we're doing? We think we are doing well here, here, and here. These are the things that are important to us as an organization. But what do you think? And I think the biggest key, you know, is if you're losing people, are you retaining people? Do you have people that stay for many years, or is it a revolving door? That's your proof.
Mm-hmm.
Turnover ratio, it's crucial.
Yeah. Engage with your employees is the best way to figure out how your company's doing. And I think that's a big step a lot of companies don't take. They don't step down the ladder one little step and ask the people that are working for them, that are actually making their company successful or non-successful, what is working and what is not, what needs to change, and what would they like to see more of.
Even as simple, I mean, I can't remember the panel I was on, but, you know, ask the people that are working on the line how they can improve the line. I mean, they're literally doing it every day, and oftentimes they are not part of that conversation, that sort of strategic, you know, process improvement conversation, yet they're living it, you know.
Right. They have insights that nobody else does, and to not harness that information is lacking on the business owner's part, as far as I'm
Which many organizations are doing within this field. They're jumping that man, the man that's right, man or woman that's right on the front line, and it's somebody from the back office making decisions to improve productivity. Meanwhile, they're not even on the line, right? So actually getting a voice from these people and understanding what the real problems are on a day-to-day basis is your best bet, I think.
Terrific. Okay. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's wonderful to hear it. So this may be tied in. This may actually have already been the answer. But one of the questions that I did want to ask is what are the common mistakes that companies make in this field? Like what are the common misconceptions or mistakes that organizations make, whether it's lack of doing something or they're doing something wrong when it comes to employing an AVP? My thought from that is that it could possibly be not connecting with your employees to reassess how your AVP is performing. But is there any others that people should be aware of?
I think we're just reiterating everything, but I would think that, as Nicole said, show people that you care about them and they will make a difference in your company. And don't treat people as numbers, because that's when you've got the revolving door starting back and forth. People are going to be leaving there the minute that they're no longer valued. We've said that a bunch of times, but to relay that in a big company is difficult. In a smaller company, you have the opportunity to do that and hold on to your employees if you treat them like they matter.
One thing that I would add is I think the onboarding process is vastly underused. Again, it does come down to resources, but anyone in the organization could, the immediate report, so to speak. It doesn't have to be somebody more high up that's crazy busy and wearing several hats, but an onboarding process shouldn't just be, oh, welcome, throw you on the line. You've taken all this time and energy to hire that person. Now you have to nurture them. And I think it is an issue with those smaller companies. They don't have the resources to do that. And we actually, through our careers now, employer coach can help with some of that with a toolkit and actual templates to show you how to do an onboarding, effective onboarding program, which isn't, it's a year after that person started checking in with them and, and all the things in between. But that amazes me how many new grads that we spend all this time attracting them to the industry, encouraging them to do to get the right skill set and experience, and then they join a company and they leave quickly afterwards. I've heard this too many times because they say, no one was guiding me, I wasn't getting any support, I don't like this industry, and they're gone. It's like, oh my gosh, we need to do better.
So you have to have that open line of communication, absolutely. And you're right, when people take all this time and energy to hire people that, you actually really get to know them, and then they're just a number, and then they're gone. You can't expect people to take that kind of treatment anymore. They need nurturing, they need to grow, and they need to feel like they're important.
Okay. Well, in the interest of time, because I do have to do some closing remarks as well to this, I would have one question that I'll pose to you. Is really more just an opportunity to say a last piece. But in addition to those who are attending today's session, I have mentioned that a recording will be shared directly with Food and Beverage Ontario's membership. It's a great opportunity to essentially bend the ear of the sector. So with that in mind, if they were to walk away with one key piece of employee recruitment and retention advice, what piece of advice would you give them? And why don't we start with Lucas this time?
I would say my main piece of advice is to open up, show who you are, what your core values are of your company, why people would want to work for you, and that you're going to be there for the long run.
Excellent. Okay. Nicole.
One piece of advice I would say, make sure you know what your core values are, and the culture you want to portray, because that will jumpstart everything. You know, who you attract, who's who's within your organization 2, 3, 5 years down the road. Yeah, that would be for me the most important thing.
Okay. And Leslie.
I would say passion. Have some passion for your business, and passion is infectious. Get yourself out there on a video, like you said, with the iPhone. Do whatever you have to do to get on social media, but words mean a lot, and to see someone on a video that actually has passion and believes in their company, it's infectious, and it'll sell. So believe in yourself, and positivity attracts positivity, I believe.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, we are just about out of time. So Nicole, Lucas, Leslie, I can't thank you enough for agreeing to volunteer your time and to join this session and talk to Ontario's food and beverage processors on how they can better attract and retain their employees. So a big thank you to all of you for this. I know I've learned a lot, and I hope everyone in attendance has as well. So to close things out, I'd also like to thank everyone who has attended this afternoon. And before we close today's session, I'd like to remind everyone that the Workplace and Cultural Development webinar series is a new addition to FBO's comprehensive workforce strategy to alleviate the sector's labor crisis. As I said, this is one of the biggest issues facing the sector. FBO is committed to supporting Ontario's processors and attaining and retraining employees by delivering highly accessible and effective initiatives like the Careers Now program, which was mentioned earlier, which will also offer job seekers free job-ready skills training, access to recruiters, and as well as employers through job fairs and insight into the career pathways through mentorship. Those mentorship videos, by the way, are on our YouTube channel, as well as this session will also be uploaded there. So if you go there, please feel free to check both of those out. If you would like your business to participate in one of our job fairs or mentorship sessions, or if you would like to connect with job seekers through our Careers Now program, specifically our employer portal, visit foodandbeverageontario.ca/careers now. And with that, just one final thank you for all of you in attendance, and I hope that everyone has a terrific afternoon.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Guys,
Again.
thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.